Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink.
Clink and drink.
Clink and drink. Mm, love the wine. My name is Lola Stardust. I am your hostess with the mostest,
I am Silent Stardust, your wine expert.
the wine expert, and the host with the most. And before we get started, we have a little disclaimer that we like to do. It has been brought to our attention that sometimes when we talk about witchy stuff under the influence of Dionysus energy, some people have complained and said, I don't like that, blah, blah, blah. So we have a beautiful suggestion for you. There is an X in the corner of your screen. If you click that, you don't have to watch us.
Yep. It just disappears.
It disappears.
Problem solved.
It's magic. You are in charge of your own destiny. I love it. So before we get started with this awesome guest that I'm so excited to talk to, I'm going to turn this over to my partner in crime, my high priest, my husband of 1,000 years.
Feels like it sometimes.
I know. Silent as Stardust, why don't you tell us about the wine we're drinking tonight?
All right. Tonight, I have chosen a Spanish wine out of the Montsant region, which is just northwest of Barcelona.
Would you like me to
This
hold
is,
that?
yes, it is 85% Grenache, 15% Syrah. It's from Donis,
Mhm.
Barrica.
Oh.
It's an old vine. What that means is that there have been at least 30 vintages pulled off of the grapes for them to get the old vine status. And that has to be certified. So the flavors stay true and long at this point. There's no big variance year to year unless it's just Mother Nature. But for the profiles, they hold hard and true. Dry, but very soft on the palate.
Yeah.
Got a touch of earthiness to it, a little bit of cherry, a touch of leather. Really excellent example of wines out of this region. Not expensive at all. It's going to run you $12 to $15, or you can find it on the shelf. And if you're going to do any food pairings with it, it's going to go wonderful with some paella.
Oh, paella.
Yeah, it'd go wonderful with it.
Speaking of wine, can you fill her up?
Absolutely.
We had a little wine in the green room when we were talking. I like to say the green room. It was right here, in the green room beforehand. So I sipped that pretty quick. Thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
All right. I want to focus now on our awesome guest that we have here. So I am friends with Trish Parker, who is part of the ATC, Aquarian Tabernacle Church. And she, with a couple other people, have created a beautiful festival that we will be talking about, later on in the show. And she's like, hey, let's promote our speakers at the festival while getting you some guests for Witches and Wine, because she absolutely loves our show. She's like a big fan. She fangirls on our show. I'm like, okay.
And we love Trish. So.
And we love Trish. So we got all connected, and here we are. I want to welcome to the show Ivo Dominguez Jr. Welcome.
Delighted to be here.
I'm so glad. And you are drinking a wine. Can you tell us about the wine you're drinking?
It is a homemade Merlot. I live on about 100 acres of land, and we actually have some vines of our own. And it's not enough to produce a lot of wine, but we make some for ourselves every year. And occasionally we also make mead. And this one is about 8 years old, and it's doing really well. It's smoothed out considerably. It has a little bit of extra tannin in it and a little bit of extra stuff because I added a bit of lemon zest into the first primary fermentation.
Yeah. Nice. We like homemade wine. Yeah. Absolutely. And where, for our viewers, you are in, where are you located?
I'm in Delaware, which is mid-Atlantic state, and the southern part of the state is actually very rural. I live across from a state forest. Georgetown is my address, and Georgetown technically has 5,000 residents, but I live about 6 miles out of town, which means my nearest person who is not a coven member is about 1.5 miles away.
Wow. I love hearing about these rural witches. I know a lot of rural. It's hard to say when you've had a little wine. Rural witches. And that is our dream, is to, because we have a lot of rural areas around here that we want to move out to. I mean, that's the best place to practice your witchcraft, right?
Be out with nature. truly in her beauty.
You know, it also when we first moved out to the land that we bought collectively years and years ago. Actually, it would be 1991 is 90s when we bought the land. 91 is when we started living on it full time. And people said, "Oh, you're so out of the way. You're going to be so lonely." Reality is that, you know, prior to COVID, and it's getting better now. We were constantly, every weekend, every other weekend, there was something happening at the house. And it's not just our people. We had plenty of friends who said, "May we borrow your circle in the woods? May we borrow your labyrinth? May we borrow your fire pit?" So we had other groups that were making a trek down to our place because it was pagan-owned land that was available and felt right.
Yeah.
And we're across from a state forest, so it feels much larger than it truly is.
Oh yeah, I bet. But geez, that to me is heaven.
Yeah, that's one of our coven goals. Is we want a coven stead with acreage outside of town that we can set up for people coming through, pagans coming through, to have a way station, so to be, if need be, on their travels and so forth.
Yeah.
And just to be able to have a place to host community.
Yeah. It's our dream.
Currently, we also have visitors, people that are driving on their way to work, that come near us to our house. They'll text or email, "Do you have eggs?" We have chickens, so we have an overabundance of eggs right now, more than we can eat.
Wow.
So we usually get between 8 and 12 eggs a day, which we can't eat that many. So lots of people are picking up little golden treasures from us.
I love it. That's awesome. So I want to talk about, I've been reading about you, and I'm very excited. I'm just like, oh my gosh, so many questions, but I like to ask everyone their origin story. So if you could tell us a little bit about, when did you know you were this magical person? Like, when did that start coming into realization for you?
Okay, I'll give you the really abbreviated form because we have a lot of stuff to cover in an hour or so.
Yeah.
All right. So I was one of those kids whose imaginary friends never quite went away because they ended up not being imaginary friends, but nature spirits or dead people. So, that was perhaps the beginning.
Yeah.
But I also had the good fortune of having my dad be a professor and living in a college town. I had access to the university's library. I got to look at a lot of books that I probably would never have found otherwise.
Yeah.
And I actually think in the end, fate got me to paganism, because in witchcraft in particular, because I had read a lot of the ceremonial magic books and some Kabbalah and a bunch of other things that were the alchemy books, the oldie moldies, if you will, that you would expect to find at the university library. Yeah. However, as a child, when I was in high school, my parents said, "You have to do sport. Really, you have to do a sport." And I was fairly physically active on my own, but they said, "You really have to." And I said, "There's nothing here I want to do." So I got permission to, because the high school is walking distance to the university. So I got permission to leave the high school, walk over to the university, and I took up fencing because, and I loved fencing. I was briefly on the fencing team when I got to college. But there I was in the locker room changing, pimply-faced teenage kid.
Yeah.
And this guy who's a grad student, who of course looks ancient to me at that age, is quickly.
Are you that age now?
Grad student?
You're older than that age.
I'm going to be 65 now, so
Okay, so witchcraft, people who are witches, we look young forever.
Yeah, we
don't look 65. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So this grad student's changing fast, and out from underneath his t-shirt pops a little pentacle that is visible for just a second, and I notice it, and I go, and I look, and he's freaking out. He's like putting it back away as fast as possible.
Oh crap.
And I go, so are you Gardnerian? Are you Alexandrian? Are you Georgian? Are you? And his eyes are getting bigger. This minor is questioning him about witchcraft in the locker room in public. He said, let's talk about this outside.
Right? There's people listening. We need to go.
So he was kind enough to say, no coven worth their salt will take somebody your age, but if you give me a bunch of self-addressed stamped envelopes, that was the currency in the day. then I will make sure that you get mailed our coven newsletter for the next couple of years until you're old enough to see if this is where you want to be.
Yeah. Hey, and
So,
that can
yeah.
I say that just reminds me of something. I was explaining to someone the other day why, and I just want to hear, just it reminds me why the rule or the, and I kind of know why, but 18 and older, right, to be in a coven.
You know, there have been, well, there have been many times where people have gotten themselves in trouble, and this is not about anything inappropriate sexually. It's about parents who are very angry that their minor
Yeah.
child is being indoctrinated into another religion. And frankly, if I had kids, I would be concerned about them being drawn into a religion that I didn't know everything about, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
So aside from any other indication of impropriety, it really is about parental rights and getting the whole coven and or tradition in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
There was
No, that
only
makes sense.
one. There was only one time ever that we had somebody who was under 18 that we allowed to attend workshops and public rituals, and that was because both his parents. He was 16. Both his parents came and said, "We are giving approval."
Mhm.
We understood, you know, they interviewed us and we said we're giving approval for him to go to open rituals and workshops.
Yeah.
And I said, and if at any time your decision is rescinded, all you have to do is call me and it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it,
want,
but that was rare.
yeah,
That was very
yeah.
rare.
I just wanted to clarify that because you know, we have viewers that are new, old, no viewers that know a lot, that don't, whatever, and I just that's an important thing to bring up.
And we've had people reach out who are under 18 asking questions, and we're saying, you know, there's a general place you can go, but until you're 18, we want to limit what we try to tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The only thing that because, you know, I feel bad because I don't want to cut people out, because honestly, I mean, I and a bunch of my friends were trying to start our first coven when we were in 9th and 10th grade. It didn't go well.
Right.
But
yeah.
Right.
But
so I understand the desire to do so.
Oh, yeah.
But and it's different than it was when I was that age. But now I can point people at online resources for, these are some nice list of books. These are some nice websites you might want to check out, and provide information without crossing that line.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it just the way I talk to people is like, wait, before I forget. And so sometimes I'm like, this has to do with it. But so you were this minor, they said, here we go.
You can't come. But as soon as I was old enough, I ended up taking a bus to go to one of their picnics, because that was before the era of the Camp Out Festival actually springing into being yet.
Oh, wow.
I predate the festival era, and what we did, but what we did back then is people would would get one of the pavilions at a public park or a picnic, and basically announce, hey, we're having a picnic. But really what would happen is people would eat, people would throw frisbees around, but then if you actually got close enough to the pavilion or the tables people were sitting at, they were talking about witchcraft.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was the way to meet people, honestly, to see whether or not it would be a compatible mix if you were interested in training with them or perhaps joining with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Energy's got to flow. You know, energy's got to get along with each other. I mean, you could have a great personality and get along with people, but if you're practicing magic with people, there's a little more to that than just, hey, I like this person.
There has to be. I'm going to compare it to music. If you're trying to put together a choral group, the voices have to blend.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking
That's
at
a really good way of looking at it.
And it's not necessarily that somebody's got a bad voice. It's just the wrong one for that band or the wrong one for that choral group.
Exactly. And you used a wonderful example because we are music freaks over in this house. So yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. Yeah. It's like a choral group. The voices have to blend. So you finally were old enough. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. We have a little bit of a time lag because both me and my other half are on Zoom. He's on Zoom. I'm on StreamYard, and we're taxing our our rural internet.
I
So
understand it happens. It happens. We had S.J. Tucker on one of our shows, and she kept freezing
She's
really
in the middle
bad.
of nowhere too.
Yep, exactly. And I was like, oh no, but you know what? People loved it anyway because it's S.J. Tucker. So
Right. How can
Yeah.
you not love that, right?
Oh my God, S.J.'s amazing.
Yeah, she is.
So you were old enough. So you were basically pretty young and willing to explore this when you became of age, I guess, already.
Yeah, I mean, I had done as much exploring as I could while I was in high school. When I turned 18 and on my way to college, then other doors opened that made it possible.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of these picnics. I went to anything that was open. It was the very dawn of the festivals, outside camping festival, tradition that happened. By the way,
Yeah.
that came into being because Andres Corbin Arthen from Rites of Spring in Boston went to one of the picnics that Keepers of the Ancient Mysteries in the Middle Atlantic states were doing. And from that, he was inspired to create the very first pagan festival in the U.S.
Oh, wow. Who was this again?
Andres Corbin Arthen, Rites of Spring Earth Spirit Community in New England. And he's also very prominent with doing pagan work in the Parliament of World Religions. But anyway, history.
Yeah. Well, clink and drink to the creation, or
to the creation of all those things.
American pagan history.
American pagan history.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So, I started going to gatherings as well, and I began to wonder about what do we want to do next. Now, one of the things that happened back in 1982, 83 is my lover Jim and I decided that we were going to open a bookstore in Wilmington, Delaware.
Oh.
Which was an alternative bookstore. It was called Hen's Teeth, and we decided that we would carry everything that everybody else didn't carry. So we carried all the occult and metaphysical books. We carried all the queer books, the feminist books, the environmentalist books. We also had the bread and butter that kept the place alive was the science fiction and fantasy section, because there wasn't a science fiction and fantasy store in the town. Yeah. And we had a lovely upstairs space with chairs and tables, and we had many workshops, many study groups. As we decided, we're going to see who's out there to see if there are enough people here to try to create something.
And what year was this?
82, 83.
Oh, wow. You want to know how old I was in 82 and 83?
Sure.
I was 10, 11. So
you were saying you were trying to find out how big a community, how many people were showing up?
For the workshops and discussion groups, between 15 and 20 for them on a regular basis. If we had an outside speaker from truly out of the area, we sometimes got 40.
Okay.
So it was actually a decent number.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and back in the 80s, yeah, that's big.
It was. Now, we then decided after at that point about 2 years worth of study groups and getting to know people. Jim and I invited the people that looked like they were reasonably sane. And please note, I'm saying reasonably sane because we allow for there being a bit more loosey-goosey diversity of mind in our community, but we did not suspect any axe murderers. So we invited them back. So we invited them back to the house for a few more meetings and said, look, we want to try to create something here. And at that point, we had determined that anybody that we wanted to actually train with, and that's another consideration, was anywhere between 3 and 6 hours away.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Wow. I said people that we would want to train with.
Yeah. Yes.
Because if you're going to train with somebody, you want somebody that you're going anyway.
Yeah.
So we debated it, and we thought about, well, we could rent a minibus together and save on mileage and exhaustion from driving. But we all decided that really we couldn't commit to that many years of driving that many hours to be trained by other people. So we said, look, what do we already have? And what would be available in terms of workshops at conferences and events.
Yeah.
And we said, look, we've got at that moment we had we had 2 Gardnerian first, 3 Alexandrian seconds, 3 people that were Golden Dawn people, 1 person that was training with Sunbear on Red Road Path, 2 people that were part of the Sabian Assembly. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
But it was a variety of backgrounds, and we said, look, instead what we will do is we will simply continue studying together. We will also help each other get to events to learn elsewhere and bring back stuff. And we did that for another couple of years. And then we said, fine, we're ready to form a coven. And then after that coven had been up and running for 6 years, and remember, coven years are like dog and cat years. So
I'm sorry.
It's
I
true,
love
though.
that. It is.
6 years.
So
We
we
feel like 60 sometimes.
So at the end of 6 years, and at that point we were hosting open community rituals and offering workshops to the community. And we said, well, we've been around longer than some of the official covens we're aware of. We seem not to be doing too badly. So we then looked amongst each other and said, which of us do you think are furthest along? And at that moment, there were about 27 of us.
Holy.
And I know it's a big number. And so there were, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there were 6 of us that were identified by the group as a whole as having either more book learning or more innate talent or a bit of both.
Yeah.
And everybody said, okay, we're going to tie a knot in time, and this will be the beginning of this new tradition. And basically, a ritual was created where the whole group got together, and compare it to turning a drone into a queen in a hive. There was energy raising. Everybody bestowed gifts of energy and empowerment upon those 6, and then we had our first people that we identified as clergy. And then after a little bit more growth, we said, crap, we've gotten too big for it to be humanly safe. So we ended up fissioning into 4 separate covens.
Wow.
And then did a long, terribly taxing weekend where by consensus, because we wanted to make sure we got it right, and if we didn't kill each other, then it was proof it was the right thing to do. We wrote the charter and the rules for the tradition that's the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel. Currently, we're 14 covens, and I can speak more to it, but I'll shut up so we can
that was going to be my next. It's like you read my mind. That was going to be the next topic. And so your coven, the first coven, was the one that was Keepers of the Holy Chalice, correct?
Holly, like the tree.
Holly. I'm sorry, I have it written. I'm sorry, Holly.
And in fact, the coven has a chalice that was lathed from a piece of holly.
Oh wow!
Oh, beautiful.
And has a silver insert in it. And each of the covens has a tool that acts as the anchor for the group mind of that particular coven.
Oh,
in our tradition.
So can you an anchor? Does it have to be a chalice, or can it be anything?
There are swords. There are swords. There are wands. There are staves. There's pentacles. It can be.
Does it have like a particular symbol on it?
All right. So yes and no.
Okay. I don't want you to reveal coven secrets, but
this will be very simple. I can nip that in the bud right now. Because of the era that we were born as a tradition, we decided that we would never have oath-bound material. Period. And in fact, everything is almost open source. We are willing to share, train, teach people anything that we do, except, what's the except part? If something is going to potentially be problematic or dangerous for the person, like for example, if you want to learn our techniques for doing drawing down or divine embodiment, I'm going to ask you to commit to a year or 2 of actually getting taught how to do it. Not like, I went to one of your workshops, I think I know how to do that, and I'm going to be fine. No.
Okay.
So anyway, so if it's something where somebody could potentially cause harm to themselves or other, magically, spiritually speaking. We want to make sure you get the full deal or not at all.
Yeah.
But so that our covens are linked in sets of 4.
Okay.
So if you look at our the glyph for the assembly, it looks like 12 circles. Well, each of those circles represents one of the signs of the zodiac, but in each of those circles there are 4 covens, and each of them carries one of the elemental tools.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
Because basically the covens that are part of the same circle, if you will, of Pisces, Capricorn, whatever, they each have one of the elemental tools, and they get together a couple of times a year to do ritual together, bringing the tools together and cross-fertilizing each other.
Yeah.
And there's the other thing. We decided that covens had too many problems similar to nuclear families.
Yeah. Yes.
So in our tradition, people don't get all of their training in the coven that they're a member of. So let's say that you're in, let's say, for example, that you're in the circle of Aquarius and you want to learn about runes, and none of your coven mates are big rune people. And you want to do that as part of your degree work. All right. Then you call out to the other 3 covens that are part of your circle and ask for one of their rune people to be the proctor who instructs that person. And when they feel that person has learned what they need, then they write a letter to the clergy of that coven saying, so-and-so has accomplished the following and has enough competence for you to consider them to be ready for that part of their work. So that people get farmed out to whoever has the knowledge in that set of 4, so that the clergy within any one coven doesn't have to pretend to be an expert at everything.
There's something to that.
Oh my God, that is brilliant. Now I'm trying to. Numbers make me go. Bah. So you're saying there are 12 different groups.
So
are
we haven't filled all 12 circles. We've only got 14 covens. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Because here's the other thing. We hated the idea of things growing too fast because we saw a lot of groups go crash boom because they grew too fast.
Yes.
So our growth is very slow, which is fine by us. And part of the deal there is that the covens that are sets of 4 have to be within a reasonable driving distance of each other. So if you move to the other side of the country, with your blessing, start your own thing, but you can't be part of our tradition anymore.
Got it.
I was about to ask you, what kind of footprint are we talking about for where you're located?
We're from New Jersey to DC area.
Okay.
For all 14 covens, yeah.
So
which means
Mid-Atlantic, literally.
Mid-Atlantic, yeah.
Literally. Now, we've had people leave and do their own thing, and they we recognize them as being degreed in our system, but the deal is we're building a community in addition to being a teaching tradition.
Yeah.
The other bit is nobody gets their 3rd degree from their coven clergy.
Huh.
Where do they get their 3rd degrees from?
So the 1st and the 2nd happens with coven clergy being the final say. If somebody is at the stage where they're ready to be a 3rd, then whoever has been their primary teacher, or both, in that coven will convene all the 3rd degrees in the tradition and say, I want so-and-so to receive their 3rd. Here's the reasons why I think they're ready for it. And everybody goes, okay, now we interview them. The person gets interviewed by the 3rds of the whole tradition, or as many as could show up. And if they get a majority vote of the 3rds, they get a 3rd.
Oh, interesting. And then who does the
elevation?
The elevation.
Then the coven. The elevation is done by the coven they belong to and the clergy in there. However, here's where we're going to throw you one more monkey wrench.
Yes. Wait, can we clink and drink to monkey wrenches?
Oh, yeah.
Monkey wrenches.
That's a good word.
Yes, I like the monkey wrench. Yeah.
Drink and drink.
All right. So because we wanted to make sure the covens actually stayed in touch with each other and worked each other, the 1st degree, you can do that by yourself as a coven. The requirements for the actual ritual for a 2nd degree requires you to bring in visiting ritualist from the other covens.
Okay.
That's so cool.
So you can't even get enough people with the right talents to do the 2nd degree without bringing in people from your from your sibling covens.
Yeah.
And for the third degree, that's often true because it's a more elaborate ritual, but you could technically get away with it, but nobody does. And here's the final monkey wrench. The person being initiated gets to invite other people to attend their ritual, not just their coven mates.
Oh,
interesting.
So cool.
So I mean, wouldn't you
in that sense?
You're really open on
it
that.
Is not being
wouldn't you want to invite somebody to your ritual that had been the person training you in runes or whatever it was that you really loved that wasn't available in your coven?
That's so cool. I love that. And that is such a beautiful way of establishing community.
Yeah. And sometimes people invite their spouses that are not witches because it helps demystify it and make it less scary.
Yep.
Oh my God. I love that. Okay, so this is kind of falling into what we are doing this evening. We are actually initiating one of our dedicants as a first degree tonight. And we're a very small coven. We're very small. But we have what we call like inner court, outer court.
Right.
And so our outer court is such a wonderful group, and that you're giving me ideas of how to make us all connected in a way. So if there's people that are in an outer court and support what we do, it'd be really cool. And they have helped our dedicants and been there for them. There would be no reason why we couldn't invite, not tonight, but in the future, there would be no reason if that's part of your tradition.
I mean, one of the things to consider is that there's one of the concerns people have about, aside from the oath-bound stuff, and we don't have that, so that's not a non-issue. But even if we did, let's pretend for a second. One of the, but if it was all members of the tradition, but at different stages and in different covens, then it still wouldn't be an oath-bound matter, right? The thing that people worry about is that if the ritual relies on surprise or a mystery that is revealed, that it steals the thunder if the ritual for that elevation or initiation doesn't have the same sparkle. The way we got around that was, we have a list of things that are ritual actions that must occur at the first, the second, the third. We also have a fourth and a fifth. We don't have any fifth degrees yet. And I'll mention what those are in a second.
Yeah.
But so there are things that must happen in each of those rituals, or else it's not one of ours.
Got it.
But every ritual is handwritten for that individual and is a unique one-off ritual and woven into that ritual are those pieces.
The uniqueness for that person, where they're going to have your base structure, but then each of the arms and the legs are going to be different on it.
So there's some parts that are the structure that hold it together and make it magically sound that everybody gets, and then there's stuff that's just for that person based on their own challenges or strengths or needs.
Oh my,
very cool.
God, you are blowing my mind right now, because we are a very small coven. We've been around 6 years?
5 years.
6 years. And we are very much about taking in and making our own tradition. We're the Stardust Coven, basically. We're children of the Crossroads, but we want to develop a Stardust tradition. So I love to hear this. This is feeding my soul. Yeah. So with that said, what we might get a little controversial. I don't know. What do you think of like the purists that are very tradition? Because there's a lot of that. And
yes.
Yeah.
I actually think they're very useful and very important. But let me put it in this context. So let's pretend for a moment that we're looking at biology. It's really important, for example, to have, let's look at corn or wheat or tomatoes or something like that. It's important that we have all the variations that have been created in recent times and still preserve. This is what the original tomato stock was. This is what the only way that we maintain the diversity for the future is to make sure that we have people that are being purists, people that are being experimentalists, it needs to be a full ecology and a full record of all the transformations that the magic has gone to. So my take on it is that we help each other. If it weren't for people that were absolute purists and did it as best they could to stick to the original, or people do reconstructions religions, then we'd lose that. And that acts kind of like think that, well, you like music, think of it as the drummers that make sure that the drum circle doesn't turn into the ninth circle of hell. If you don't have a rhythm backbone that keeps them all from flaking out. It's true though.
I know, you're so right. You go to these
it's kind of like you want to yell clear and do the AFib thing.
Oh my God, I love that. Oh my God. Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm for all of it. And I think that the community has a better future as long as we keep all the variants alive, the oldest and the newest.
We need, because I think that tradition is important because we need a little something to structure around it. Like I always say, like we do traditional like setup of our coven.
Right.
But within that structure, within the bones and the wood of the house, we can fill it with whatever we want. And so that's kind of how we view our coven, is like, I was trained in British traditional, whatever that means. I mean, I know what it means, but as I've gotten older and have
there are
learned
many
more,
flavors.
Yeah, there's so many, right? And so we try to let not anyone come in the coven, but whoever's already in the coven bring something that may not be considered traditional, may not be considered
things that we've practiced ourselves, but would still interest us, and we want we want to learn from them and their experiences and their knowledges. And
would you call that? Would you say that's eclectic?
If this were 10, 15 years ago, I would use that word. But nowadays, eclectic has gotten such a bad rap because people.
Why has eclectic got such a bad rap? I think eclectic's a great word to use.
It is a great word, but it's almost like if you come up with any word. We now live in the era of social media where there's a life cycle for, this is a really cool word, it means something. And then over the course of a couple of years and cycling through memes, it turns into something completely different and acquires negative connotations. Yeah. So nowadays, when people say eclectic, I often ask, do you mean it in the original sense of the word, or do you just mean that the person is sloppy in how they mix things?
We mean original sense.
We mean original.
You know what I mean? But no, I know you do. But it's terrible.
No,
we lose that language.
That's interesting to me because, I think we put too much into words and labels because, I mean, there was a time and there still is a time when if you tell someone in a group of witches that you're Wiccan, I get looks like, oh, you're, fluffy and oh, you can't handle dark stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's like, no, sometimes those labels.
But here's the other bit though. Every several years, people that are fresh and new coming into this, a chunk of them have to, and this is a human thing, have to come up with new words, new ways of describing what they do, and a way of distancing themselves from the previous version of things. It's called being a teenager, except it happens culturally.
Yeah.
There's the moment where you have to do the autonomy thing and create my own identity and push away mom and dad. And basically every 7 to 9 years, the people who are coming into magic, I mean, I don't mind it. And I just take it as one of my friends, like, it's terrible. They're throwing stuff away. And we were doing that, 30 years ago. And it's like, yes. And you know what? And if you wait another 10 years, people will be yelling at them, and it's all good.
Yep.
It's all good.
So,
but it's better to avoid thinking about that and just say, what are the new ones coming up with that is actually going to move us forward?
Yep. Well, it's evolution. I mean, we have to evolve as much as did you forget? Oh, you're still there. I'm 51 and I come from a family of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in witchcraft, we have to evolve. We have to, I mean, if we don't, we're going to lose people. So it's important to evolve.
Well, it's a whole grow or get left behind concepts.
I wanna. God, we could talk about this. So you've got a lot of background in when you were setting up this this tradition. You kind of took from astrology, Kabbalah, folk religions. Can you tell me a little bit about how that plays into your tradition?
Well, I mean, as a for example, everybody's initiation date is picked based on when the astrology is going to make them most capable of receiving the change.
And what do you? So is it about their astrology sign?
Their personal chart and their personal chart and how it would be and we'll figure out, look forward. Okay, when do we want to do this? Sometime in the next 6 to 12 months. In that time period, when are we looking at that? Is the days in which that person will be most open to receive that kind of change or transformation that is brought about by initiation. So that's one thing that shows up. The other bit is simple and practical stuff like, okay, so and so's going to have to write is writing the next full moon ritual for their coven. So what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to look at see which sign the moon is going to be in when it's full, because that gives you the flavor of the energy and what will be most received and most efficacious in that time. For example, if the moon is in Cancer, it is probably not a good idea to have a truth-telling and exploring your shadow ritual. Everybody's going to get their feelings hurt.
You think?
Not Cancer.
Our two teenage boys are Cancers, so we
I'm married to a Cancer.
Yeah. See. Yeah.
So, but the moon's going to be in Libra. So that arts and crafts art project ritual that you wanted to do, that would be a great time to do it.
Yeah.
So I mean, but it shows up that way. But also the structure, the overarching structure for our whole tradition is based on that, because we see the 12 signs as representing the 12 forms of human wisdom and human folly. It's basically they are the 12 flavors of human consciousness and spirit. So what we're doing, the whole tradition is really a mandala built over the course of many decades. And if we ever finish the wheel, we will basically create a representation of the 12 signs made manifest as covens.
Oh my God! So I'm so, this is amazing. Yeah. So we're talking about astrology. I want to kind of tune in on this a little bit. I read that you're a professional astrologer. So can you be
among other things?
Well, I know. Yeah. You're a lot of things. Astrology seems to be, like I said, we got to do the cliff notes here because we could go on for hours. In your astrology, I want to ask you, people talk about the big three. So their sun sign, their rising, and their moon. Do you agree with that being the very important parts of, if you want to do a Cliff Notes version of your personality, or do you think there should be something else that should be added in there or taken away and replaced with?
That's a good starting point. But here's the thing that I'm going to say as a way of looking at all of astrology. All right, imagine that your chart, your birth chart, your natal chart is, I'm going to be old for a moment and pretend it's a vinyl LP. Or if you have to, or if you have to pretend that it's a CD, and if that doesn't work, all right, fine. It's an MP3 file that you've got on a flash disk.
There you go.
All right.
I like the LP relation.
Let's go with the LP for a minute. All right, let's go with the LP for a second. So if I put that LP that's your chart, and I'm going to play it using one of those awful, terrible old close and play things that you had to put pennies on to keep the needle from jumping all over the place.
Yes.
Yep.
It would sound, or just a cheap system. It would sound terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, you could very little stereo separation. You can barely make out some of the words, and some of the instruments are mud in the background. Take the same piece of music on an LP, on a CD, on an MP3 file, punk. I've now put it into an audiophile, really expensive system. You can barely tell it's the same piece of music. You can hear nuances, the squeak of fingers on strings. You can hear the soft breath as somebody is about to utter a word as they sing. And guess what? The chart does not tell you the nature of the soul that is the playback system.
Oh my gosh. Okay, the chart does not tell
you the nature of the playback system. That's your soul. So that as you evolve as a person, your same old chart is going to feel and sound different because it's going to be truer to its nature as opposed to the bad reproduction that was at the beginning.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm hoping you're remembering some of this because I will forget. And
we have it recorded.
We haven't recorded it. We can watch the playback. That is an amazing analogy. I love that. That is.
It's also why you can have people that are twins that are born minutes apart. But the chart will tell you what their propensities are. The chart is like your energy or spiritual DNA. But we are not controlled by our DNA, but it sure has an influence.
Oh,
your soul/spirit. Your soul and spirit is unique. It's working within the parameters of what it was given. And that's what the chart is, your parameter.
Your parameters, yeah.
We have a coven sister who's actually, her elevation is tonight. Where awesome. me and her are 6 days apart total.
Yeah.
We have one thing different in our chart.
Yeah.
Only one. But we are very, very different in a lot of ways.
And that's outer influence. That's different. They've led different lives. And so you can't, someone could have a similar chart to someone else, but it doesn't mean they're going to act the same. Yeah. So that's what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. And, but the house structures can change very quickly as well. So there's a lot of little differences that can add up. But even if it's even when you notice more of the differences, like, for example, somebody who used to be in one of our covens, her brother and I had charts that were very similar, born the same day, close to the same time, different geographies, and that changes because I was born in Cuba and he was born up here in the Northeast. So that changes the chart. It really does.
Yeah.
However, he was a soldier of fortune.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he was a professional mercenary.
Yeah.
And she would look at his chart and look at my chart, and she would go, and I said, but I do have a fiery warrior spirit, except I fight differently than he does.
Exactly.
And I've been involved in tons of different kinds of activist movements over the years, and protested many times, been arrested twice for doing civil disobedience, yada yada. So I do have that in me, but it expresses differently than his.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that so much. I hate to rush us along, but
we're running out of time and we have things to say. I know.
So real quick, do you have any new, I know you've got a website that I looked at that gave me everything I needed to know about what you're doing, your tradition. I'm going to put it here. It is Ivo Dominguez Jr.com. Check that website out if you want to find it, because it's got great links to all the stuff, which is great. But you said you had a new book or series coming out in June. Can you tell us real quick about that?
Very quick, because I want to make sure we talk about gatherings and conferences. So the series is out through Llewellyn. First one comes out in June. It'll drop one book a month. It's the Witch's Sun Sign series. There's a book for each sun sign: the Aries witch, the Taurus witch, the Gemini witch, looking at how you view your sign and how you draw upon the sources of your magic in your sun sign. I write half of each book. There's a second author that writes about a third of each book that's of that particular sign, and then short pieces like spells and stuff that are by the other people. So 12 books, one a month, starting in June.
Very cool.
One other thing about the website, click on the links to follow the chants. There's recorded chants that are available, and there's also a lot of path workings for the seas, for the Sabbats and for the moons. And it's all free material. Go listen to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk about summer magic. festival.
Summer Magic Festival, and you were talking about the importance of hotel festivals. Can you go into that?
Yes, I love camp out events. I love being out in nature, but hotel-based events are much more controlled spaces, which means if you have classes that require quiet and focus and access to PowerPoint or other things, hey, you actually can do it. It's actually better for teaching. Always going to be better, and you have more people actually at the festival at a conference showing up for classes than at those. The other bit is that the population's not getting any younger, and we also have people that have different levels of physical capacity. And let's be real, camping is not actually doable for a goodly number of people.
No, it's not.
I don't mind hot weather, but I suspect that people choose not to go to certain camping events because it's too bloody hot.
Yeah.
So if the future of our community is education, and the future of our community is including our elders, which aren't going to be going to the camping events as much anymore.
No, they're not. And that's a big thing that happened with ATC's Spring Mysteries Festival that was held at Fort Flagler for so long. And then during COVID, Fort Flagler kind of fell apart because they didn't have enough people.
Of course.
So they're moving their very first Spring Mysteries for this year is going to be at the Hilton Hotel in Seattle. And I think, if I remember correctly, Belladonna, the Archpriestess, said she got influenced by last year's Summer Magic.
That was the very first one, yes.
That was the first one. So we're going to talk about this Summer Magic Festival. I'm going to bring in a couple of amazing women who have helped with this. We've got Bobby Joe and Raina Temple B. And hello, welcome.
Welcome, ladies.
Hey.
Hi.
So, can you tell us? And Ivo is one of your
Keynote speakers.
Keynote? Is it like a keynote or a workshop or headliner? How do you call that? Yeah, all of it, all of the above.
Yeah, he's definitely one of our headliners this year in 2023, and he was a headliner in our first year last year. We made a decision to bring back a couple of the same people so that people who attend the festival can kind of deepen their practice with these teachers. A lot of us don't have access to teachers on a regular basis, so we wanted people who came to the festival to be able to work with the same teachers for more than 1 year.
And
Absolutely.
where is this festival?
And we are in Orlando, Florida, where right in the middle of the state, where there's lots of hotels, lots of stuff for your family to do while you're doing the witchy stuff, where there's this atmosphere of acceptance and tolerance. It's one of the most queer-friendly, everybody-friendly kind of places you can imagine. And they've been very, very open for us. And there's a big
It's been pretty amazing, actually.
Can you tell me how this came about? Because you said last year was the first time you did this. And this is a big festival. I'm looking into this and I'm going, holy crap. How did you, because I know that Trish did the Phoenix Fire festival. Is she still doing that, or is this?
Yes. Trish does Phoenix Fire.
Okay.
I am a part of the Florida Pagan Gathering.
Okay.
And I'm on their board. And Raina is part of Turning of the Tides with EMLC. It is done in South Florida. And we got to be friends through mutual friends. And we just started doing a lot of camping together. And the three of us sat down one day and said, hey, there's no indoor festivals in Florida. Let's give this a shot. Let's see what we can do.
So that's amazing. So is this year going to be, is it even more bigger and better than last year?
Well, we sure hope it will be. It plans to be.
We have good plans. Yeah, we do. We learned a lot the first year, and we have, a lot of the sort of basic structure is the same, but we have tweaked things here and there, and we've got more people coming, more rituals this year than before. We really are all kind of into offering rituals of lots of different traditions to the community. So that's a big focus of the festival. And it's definitely going to be better. It's going to be bigger and better.
So can you tell us who is going to be speaking? Give us an idea of what's the lineup? Who can we see there?
Yeah. Bobby Joe, do you want to start?
S.J. Tucker will be there for music.
Can't beat that.
Alexian will be there for music.
I love Alexian.
Ivo, of course. Yeshe Matthews will be back this year. Kobe will be there with Herbs. His book has just recently come out. Raina, who else do we have?
We have Stacy Williams Eng, who is the woman who created the Southern Gothic Oracle and the Southern Botanic Oracle, which I just think are amazing tools. And she's a really cool artist, and she's super excited to be there and talk about the process of creating an oracle deck. And then This Old Witch podcast is going to be podcasting live from the festival. That's Alexander Cabot. And
oh my God, I love Alexander.
Ed Massey.
Yeah. Those are good friends of Bobby Joe, and she's got them signed up. So, I mean, there's tons of fun stuff happening.
So cool.
And we've got Kobe is going to be on our show, and also, what was her name?
Yeshi?
No, not
Yeshi.
Yeshi.
Oh, no, Stacy Williams.
Stacy, and we're reaching out to others. Because I know Alexian, and I've worked with Alexian before, and I've worked with SJ, so I'm hoping that they'll come on our show. And this sounds like an amazing event, and I'm so happy we can help.
It's air conditioned.
Right?
In Florida. In June in Florida.
Yes, exactly.
So
a hotel with a nice pool. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Conference room.
So the like I said, the Aquarian Tabernacle Church did their Hecate sickle just last October at the Hilton, and they said it was great. It was so nice to go back to your nice, comfortable room and decompress if you wanted to take a swim. And so a lot of people were very, I guess, skeptical of moving what was a more nature-based festival into an indoor thing, and people loved it. And so I think this is great because it kind of helps us too, you know, because we were those skeptical people.
But we are campers, and so
we like camping and being out.
So for us, we're like, whatever. We're happy being out camping.
Yeah, we want to be in nature.
But
I like the drumming, so that was where I was a little sketchy at first, was the drumming. But we had such a great concert last year, and with SJ, we're going to have an amazing concert this year. It kind of makes up for it. So
yeah, I love camping too. I mean, I go to a number of camping festivals. It's like chocolate and vanilla. Like they're both delicious.
Yes. You can't figure out which one you want.
Right.
I love it.
Festivals have, you can have multiple costume changes every day, and you're sleeping on a nice bed, and it's just a different thing, but it is also really, really great. And I love making it more available for people who have the mobility issues,
have disabilities or mobility. Because that's something that's so important. And when we were at Fort Flagler, that's barracks, so you're sharing showers and stuff like that, which I mean, pagans,
it's a pagan festival. It's
a pagan festival. They don't care. You get naked in a shower together, but those little conveniences are nice.
Well, and they go a long way.
Yeah.
More accommodating for people out of town, because it's easy to fly in and get to a hotel than fly in and get out to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are right next to the airport. So you fly straight into Orlando and shuttle straight to the hotel. It's right there.
I love
and flights are fairly cheap to Orlando.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, well, I can't promise anything this year, but maybe next year we will make our big trek over to Florida. I've never been to Florida. Have you been to Florida?
I have never been to Florida.
We have opinions about Florida. I mean, come on, you guys. Florida man.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. That's for sure. There's a lot of great stuff too. And if you come over, that would be wonderful.
And they hold up the stories of Florida, and so we're like, I don't know.
One of my very best friends lives over in Florida. I had another best friend that lived there, and they've told me the stories. They're like, yeah, it's true, but it's fun. It's like. So before we wrap it up here, is there anything else you want to add about the festival? Where can they? I've got the website summermagicfest.org. Check it out. There's all the information you could ever want about the speakers, workshops. It looks like so much fun. And like I said, we're over here in Washington. A little harder for us to make it over there, but I think that's going to be a goal for us. And maybe one of these days we could do a live Witches and Wine from the Florida Festival. That would be
awesome.
That would be really
awesome. We love that. Yeah, we appreciate your interest and your openness to this, and Ivo being so charming and brilliant as always. It's the best advertising we could hope for.
We couldn't ask for better.
She goes, "Hey, I want some people from my festival and some of the people to come on your guys' show." We're like, "Really?
Really? Okay.
Okay, we're happy to host them."
Our little old show. Okay, cool.
So I'll throw in something. And Raina and Bobby Joe can figure out what to do with this, and Trish eventually. So I will donate 2 registrations for people who did not attend last year. You can just I don't know if you want to put it on Facebook and say, hey, we have 2 donations. Don't name me. Say, hey, we have 2 free donations for registrations for people who have never been to this event before.
Aw,
that's
right.
That is so nice. Thank you.
No, I really think it's important. We need to have good regional hotel-based events in addition to all the camping events. This is part of the future of the whole community to have access to both kinds of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's hard. These events are fragile.
Is it very similar? Are you kind of going along the lines of like a con, like that kind of feeling where it's?
Yeah, definitely. We call it a con because it's indoor and it's lots of different traditions of different things happening. Lots of costume changes, the conveniences of a con, but the creativity that
comes with Pagan. Yeah. Well, you guys have convinced us, because we were those skeptical people, and we're very open about what we feel, and that's why I was like excited when we were talking to Ivo earlier, and he said, I want to talk about the importance of these hotel festivals. I was like, yes, please do, because I know we're not the only ones that were skeptical. There was a lot of people, and so I thank you so much for you've won us over.
I'll give you one other reason why the hotel-based events. So I love camping, by the way, and I love being out in nature. But the amount of energy you use up cooking, cleaning your stuff, reinflating the air mattress, hauling water, doing the stuff. You're not doing it at the hotel, so you actually have more energy left over to stay up late dancing and talking to your friends and going to classes.
It's a lot. It is a lot. There's a lot. And you already being around such a big group of magical, energetically boastful people, it's gonna it makes you go, oh my God, I need to like rest. And so when we would decompress at the Fort Flagler, yes, we had our own little rooms, but the barracks were, it was open, and you would see, you'd hear people to have your own private room and just be like, I don't want to talk to anybody, because you're going to have those moments where you're like,
hotel events are introvert friendly.
Yes, I'm an outrovert, but I also need my time to recharge so I can be an outrovert. So Yeah,
I'm going to use that, Ivo, in our PR
advertising.
I love that.
It's true.
They are. Yeah.
You go to your thing, and then when you're done with people,
I love it. You guys have been so amazing. This is our maiden voyage of our guests that are part of your festival. So, like I said, we're going to have Kobe and Stacy on our show. Tomorrow on our show, we are actually, this is weird. We have a show 2 days in a row. We are actually having Belladonna Laveau, the Archpriestess of ATC, who's going to be talking about the Spring Mysteries Festival.
Another hotel festival.
Right.
This is the first time that they're moving such a big festival into the hotel. Like I said, they did Hecate Sickle, which is a more smaller. That was kind of their guinea pig. And they were very happy with it. So they're bringing it to the whole thing there. So we'll have her tomorrow. We'll talk about that. Thank you so much, you guys. This has been, I mean, we could go on and on and on. We'll have you come back, Ivo. I now have a new connection. This is how I make connections. I'll be emailing you going, hey. So if anyone on our show or in the audience that's watching, you're interested in what we do as a coven, if you want to be a guest on our show, if you have ideas for our shows, you can always email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
Remember, everyone, to be kind to one another, always walk with the goddess. And until next time, blessed be everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Cheers.
Always clink and drink. Always clink and drink, everybody.
Cheers.
Have a wonderful night. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.